And here we go. Welcome back again if you're still listening to the Good Performance Podcast after the first 3 episodes. I'm Otto Zaccardo. I'm joined with Brandon Jetter, Troy Shallow, and our guest, Carsten Hans Vissering.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Wow, that's such a well introduction. I like that.
He's PR ready.
I used to have in my Instagram bio the greatest athlete you never. I think Carsten might take that because no one's ever heard of him, and any high performance athlete that comes across him somehow into his obscure little like bubble of performance is in awe. I know I am. Brandon is. Yeah, so I think you're a great guest for this show because this is what a good performance is all about, is just finding the best of the best. And sometimes it's not always, the people that are in front of mainstream athletic performance, right?
Yeah, Carsten, let's get some numbers right off the bat just so people have context about what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, flex your athletic ability.
Yeah.
And also, who are you?
Video.
What do you do? Where are you from? What do you have to introduce?
Yeah, you have to
intro.
introduce yourself.
What's Carsten Vissering's story here?
Yeah, so I'm Carsten Vissering. I'm a former swimmer. I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland, and for the most part, swimming at a competitive level year-round was my primary sport from the age of 10 through graduating college. And I ended up swimming at the University of Southern California. I specialized in sprint breaststroke. Following my graduation, I decided I want to shift and just kind of explore the avenues of explosive performance because I was introduced to that late high school, but really kind of delved full into the weight room in college. And that was unique because I happened to go to a program that really specialized or had a big emphasis on weight room, which was unique to swimming. So my transition following swimming to where I am today as a national team bobsled athlete kind of was in part of my experience of the weight room at USC, falling in love with it and just really wanting to take every physical trait that's developed in the weight room, whether explosiveness, strength, speed, to the highest level. And the byproduct of that journey is kind of what led me to where I am today on the bobsled national team.
Thanks. Perfect. That was concise.
Numbers, Carsten. Give us some context. Flex.
Yeah, so I can give some of my all-time high numbers right now. So
all confirmed independently by me.
Yes, validated by Hollywood Jet. So I'm 6'5" and about 240 pounds body weight. My best standing broad jump is 11'6". That's NFL styles on a turf to a sticking the landing. Best vertical jump is 40.5 on a Vertec. My power clean is 182 kilos off the blocks at knee height, so about 400 pounds. Best front squat in the 460s, and best back squat about 550 pounds. I would say my best recorded 10 meter fly with about like a 25 meter fly in was 1.016. And best approach vert is about 43.5, 44. So those are some numbers off the top of my head. I can go into other deeper numbers if you want, but that's the immediate ones.
Crap, I've been telling people you standing broad jump 12 feet. So for my purposes, we're just going to round up 6 inches.
That's the goal, though. That'd be like my lifetime goal.
6 inches
I think I've done 12 into
a
a sand
lot.
pit.
6 inches
is more than enough. So there's a big difference. That's a lot.
We're going to round up. For anyone that doesn't know standing broad jump, because I know there's a lot of people that don't, the NFL all-time record for the combine is 12 feet 3 inches by Byron Jones. And that's I don't think guys really come close to that.
No one comes close
once
to
you're,
that.
Once you're above 11 feet, you're really in like freakish horizontal force projection territory. I actually don't think that I've broken 11 feet. I think 10 highs is the closest I've gotten. We'll see. This summer, I'll see if I can catch up. So for you, Carsten, what has been the biggest change, or did you have to not really change your training that much? Because you said you fell in love with the weight room and that kind of explosive, just training like an athlete in that college weight room environment. What did you really have to change, and what was the biggest crap moment? This is way different than what I've been doing, when you got into bobsled and you're like, crap, I need to sprint now. There's no water to keep me afloat. I'm on ground. There's gravity involved here. What was that shift like?
Yeah, 100%. So that kind of came into 2 parts. So I would say I've been always blessed with very, very high concentric output. If I, even from I remember in like middle school, I had like the best standing broad jump. And then in high school, when we were doing box jumps as our group, I would always just be able to jump really high. And what really, so I had like two waves of like where my athleticism kind of had big peaks. The first wave, honestly, was that the one thing that I think had the biggest carryover, and it helped a lot with like the standing vert, the standing broad, was getting my like deep back squat up a ton. That probably transformed me more than anything. And like that correlated to peaking my standing vert, like my standing broad, box jump, those things. And then I think the wake up call, and this is probably the second wave of what I'm on now, and this was kind of a rude awakening because obviously I'm seeing my vertical jump go up, my broad jump go up. I'm like, oh crap, I'm like putting out numbers comparable to high performance numbers at the NFL Combine and stuff. Little did I realize that obviously then once you get into like sprinting and explosiveness, there's a whole nother realm. Like you're just standing broad jump or standing vert where I can wind and deep is completely different than like someone who can produce force neurologically or has got all these high elastic tissues in their tendons. And like, I'm like, oh crap, wait, my standing broad jump doesn't correlate to speed. And now the journey's been, how do I take that concentric output, that strength, that pure force that I can produce in a longer time period, and translate that into speed and acceleration, which is just a complete different animal. And I think going to bobsled just exposed me to oh crap, like speed and explosiveness is more than just like your deep back squat and your standing broad jump. You can be really good at that, but then when you take it into like acceleration or top end, it's a whole nother animal with all these other factors.
Two things. I think one, I don't remember when I did it, Carson, but you apparently remember. I think I coined you the inelastic ogre precisely for that. Just an absolute RFD demon, but without the elasticity that I mean, you've developed a lot now, especially compared to where you started at. So I'm curious to like how have you been able to train those traits so strongly?
Yeah, that was hard, and that is like a work in progress, and that happened that's happening way slower than like getting my broad jump up or
Right.
getting my back squat and the power clean. I mean, when I first did a really all out lifting around like 19, 20 years old, I saw that just the progress was exponential.
Yeah, linear.
Getting like elasticity, getting your sprinting, getting your bounce up, so to say, that has been like up and down. There's been a steady trajectory, but it has not been as much of a clear trajectory. It's just simply getting stronger. But for me, I'm not going to be extremely elastic compared to some of the people who are on the team or some of the athletes that I'm teammates with. And a lot of that is just because I just don't innately have that trait, or I'm just a little bit too heavy for that. But I think what has helped me bridge the gap between where I started and kind of getting to where I wanted to be goal-wise as far as being more elastic, because that really has been the whole progress of my bobsled career. I mean, I remember at the start, Josh Williamson, a teammate who is very like inclined to, I guess, like mechanics and sprinting. He's a really good resource on that. He said, you've got great force output, you're strong, you just got to get punchier. And so pretty much the whole idea of getting punchier is getting more elastic and more explosive. But for me, to answer your question, I think plyometrics has probably had the biggest effect. I don't know, maybe it's just I'm slower to adapt to the sprint volume. I found that just sprinting and sprint work helps, but I don't know if anything is kind of created that much of like a bridge as single leg jumps, multiple succession broad jumps, and hurdle hops. Those seem to have like a much stronger effect in kind of helping me create that like faster force production. But yeah.
I find it interesting too. We've had this conversation before. I think me and you we came in the same year, but we came in with completely different biases. I think that, like you said previously, you came in, you're like, oh, I'm strong. Like that's going to be the main component of bobsled. I had like the opposite. I came in, I was like, oh, I had a decent college track background. I was like, okay, I'm close to 200 pounds. I've had my PRs in 10.5. Like I'm going to be fine. And I realized really quickly I'm nowhere near as strong enough as I need to be. I was, pretty instantly humbled as soon as I had to push a sled. And I think a little bit in the opposite direction. You had a little bit more immediate success, but I think in the same way you felt like, oh, I need to really start picking up the sprint work. Did you have any prior sprint background? Because your sprint, this is something I talked about with Otto, your sprint development over the last 3 years has been pretty impressive for somebody who kind of skipped out. And I don't know, Troy, you might have been the first person who I heard use this kind of terminology when you're on the previous podcast, is you kind of skipped out on like the GPP of life phase for sprinting, if I'm not mistaken. Did you have any sort of like sprint background at all? Were you?
No, not necessarily in that kind of. So I'll get into one thing that I think actually has helped a little bit, but it's funny just coming back to your biases. I had the exact same thing, and I know we've talked about this. Was at my rookie camp, just beating Denham by like hundredths of a second, and I'm like, holy crap! This guy who's like 160 pounds,
Yeah.
incredible. He's a great athlete, but like I was like a strong gust of wind's gonna like blow him over, and he just like was
Yeah.
right on my ass, and I was asking his numbers, and we're in different leagues as far as strength, but it just that made me realize, oh crap, like you got to be really, really fast in this sport. Going to your question, yeah, and that's funny you said like skip down on like the GPP of life of sprinting, and that has probably been one of the biggest challenges because I would say it's like going into like a 400 level math class when you didn't even take like 100 or 200. That has had its own set of challenges, whether soft tissue injuries. I think if I sometimes sprint at the track with spikes, the limiting factor of a workout sometimes, especially if it's like early phase, more volume, is like not, oh, I'm fried or I'm fatigued. Oh, my like joints are just giving out. Like I got to cut this workout because like the first thing giving out is my tendons. So those have been where the negatives are. I think one thing that actually has helped, and look, I understand it's a complete different stimulus, but I did a lot of cross country running growing up, and I think that has somehow given a little bit of a more subtle foundation. I obviously I'm nowhere near elite level sprinting, and it's far from, it's still a work in progress, but I'd like to think that at least having some of that foundation from like ages from like third to like sixth grade of a lot of cross country running gave somewhat of a foundation that helps. Now maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but that's really the only experience of any form of sprinting that I had prior to
That's
bobsled.
super interesting because I did cross country second to sixth grade. John Evans has argued that like cross country is an underrated sort of GPP phase for developing elasticity and developing general sprint strength. I don't have an opinion on it, but that is interesting.
So what I've heard is that you squat heavy, you do plyometrics, and you played sports and ran growing up, and it's resulted in you being a very successful athlete.
Yes, all those are all correct statements.
Yeah, that's interesting. We try to keep things simple for the good performance guys, but it sounds like getting your back squat up, crazy, mind-blowing, sentiment, but increasing your overall strength helped with your force output. And then to bridge the gap between your overall strength and explosiveness, you found plyometrics, like you said, single leg, repeat broad jumps, helps bridge that gap of strength to elasticity. Good job, coach. You're on the right track. That's something that I think Troy does a really good job with our guys, even though they sometimes don't want to listen. But a lot of guys that we've found, and Troy, you could speak on this too, that we have a lot of young athletes that think that they're so focused on getting twitchier and like getting faster. And these are primarily football players, right? But they want to get faster. They want to hit those numbers. I want to get twitchier. Is this helping me get twitchier? But their back squat looks like crap and is, it's like 200 pounds or something. Like they're not, and they weigh, 200, 180, 190, anywhere in that range. And I just think that, especially, obviously it's exciting for us to talk about, but especially now, we've talked about it on previous podcasts. Troy and I talked about it with Zach Evanesh on his podcast, is there's such a movement to get into like these minute training aspects that it seems like athletes are just losing this one, like all that stuff is great, but you have to start with, dude, squat weight. And that seems, I don't know, it seems like it should be known, but especially when you're trying to get more athletes involved in progressing themselves, like showing them what is capable, what are you capable of, where can you take whatever sport you want, like start with progressive overload, start with getting stronger, right? Because I would argue that it's a lot easier to get really strong and then bridge that gap from that strength base than like getting twitchier and then trying to like reinvent yourself and get way stronger. I don't know, but I think that base of strength is more valuable to build early on than trying to get it later in your career as an athlete. What are your thoughts, Coach?
Honestly, my connection has been horrible this whole time, and I've had a couple things I've wanted to say, but it'll like cut out, and I don't know if we're at that point anymore. So like, I just haven't been saying anything because I really have not been able to hear a ton because I don't know what the hell. That's why I've been like this the whole time. So I don't know. But I heard you talking about squat being important and kids wanting to do new things, different things when it really boils down to the basics, like Carson talking about single leg jumps, repeat broads, hurdle hops, and increasing his deep squat has, he's found that to be the best carryover to, his sprinting and vertical jump and being twitchier, if you will, being more explosive. I was listening to a podcast the other day of someone who will go unnamed, and they were saying that at their gym, they don't back squat their guys because every time someone back squats, they were getting back issues. So we don't even back squat anymore. So now we just do dumbbell Bulgarian split squats, and that's our primary lower body movement. And I'm like, maybe they're getting back issues from back squatting because they don't know how the fuck to back squat. You're not teaching them how to brace their core properly. And now you're eliminating the back squat, which is one of the most like core compound movements of ever created. Like back squat is the movement. It carries over to quite literally everything else you fucking do. If all you did was go in the gym and back squat, variations of it 5 days a week, and then you went over to test your deadlift or your bench press or your row or whatever, it would be pretty strong still. Like, that is how good of a lift back squat is. And when I hear a strength coach who's been in the game for like 30, 40 years say something that outrageous, it makes me want to blow my fucking head off.
Yeah. Keep it simple. I got a question for you based off of that, because people are back squatting, their back is hurting. Carsten and Brandon and Troy, actually all three of you, because we all compete currently now in our late 80s. What has been some shifts in terms of, I know that it's you can progress your compounds asleep probably, like that's pretty easy for us now, but in terms of other smaller training modalities, techniques, in terms of, like, I know when you're in high school you roll your eyes at myofascial release, like rolling out, stretching, all those things. No one wants to do it, but how important has your routine been, or what things that have you found in the last couple of years as everyone's getting toward their peak of their athletic career? What have you found to be helpful that could go from like sleep, diet, but also just like things that maybe aren't publicized to the mainstream audience, where it's like, oh yeah, I found that doing, like, I do single leg balance drills on one of those foam pads with my eyes closed, like just with bare feet. Like, I think that makes my lower legs feel really good and able to handle a lot of plyometric volume than previously. But it's something that I probably wouldn't have had to think about doing until I got to the point where I was like, oh crap, I need to do something to be able to handle this volume, because I can't train with the same, I can't throw caution to the wind and just like max everything out anymore. Like, I actually have to recover and take care of my body. So in no particular order, if someone has something.
Yeah,
like to share.
To that point of what you just said, not just throwing, not just horse cock and shit around like you used to, like in high school, literally just like, I'm just going to horse cock weight. I'm just going to horse cock weight around 6 days a week. And like what we do now with, the high school kids and the college kids now, as you're getting older, you realize that, and we were actually told this from Dan back in the day at Dojo. He's like, you're going to realize that less is more. And as you get older, like you're seeing now, I see it with you, like in how Otto's training now, and I'm kind of leaning towards that way too. Like, I was really trying to go still lift like 4 or 5 days a week, and I just wasn't not making as much progress. And now I'm like transitioning to 3 and maybe 2, and I'm doing more jujitsu and stuff. So like doing less in the weight room as you get older is the way. Like, you get stronger, you get faster, you get more explosive that way, because your body needs more time to recover. And that goes back to something we talk about where the younger athlete, the underdeveloped athlete, the neurologically inefficient athlete needs more training. But as you get older, you become more neurologically efficient. So you need more time to rest, and your body, your CNS drives more and faster and harder. So now you need more time to rest. So that's why when it comes to training, actual training itself, less becomes more. And that's something that we are really, and I are really starting to see more of.
Yeah, I think I'm just now figuring that out. Literally this year. Carson can attest, I'm a work capacity king when it comes to max effort jumping, max effort sprinting, but that's not always a good thing. Biggest difference for me has been setting tangible sort of. So if it's a spectrum and junk volume's here and super high quality reps is here, I spent my whole life under junk volume. I mean, just doing absurdly long workouts, horse cocking weight around. I mean, that's something I was doing up until really last year. Like I said, Carson can attest to that. Even this time last year when we were in Playa del Rey or wherever it was, Marina del Rey. I mean, how many times did I do a max effort jump on the Vertec? I probably did 60 max approach jumps, and then went and did a full low body lift. Biggest thing has I think some people get too precise, and they're timing every rep, they're timing every metric, every intangible, and that's one end of the spectrum, and the other end's junk volume. For me, it's been cutting away from junk volume towards actually having pretty tangible metrics. Big example for me has been sprinting. I, believe it or not, hardly ever used laser timers at any point in my career. My coaches barely ever used them. There was this old kind of track philosophy where they were so concerned with athletes' mentality going in if you threw the laser, if they're going to go too hard on a percentage and get hurt, or if they're going to have a bad rep and get in their head. So a lot of times, we didn't really do a lot of testing with lasers, outside of competition. Now I firmly believe in using them, one, to elicit, just a higher effort, but two, so that I can track things. I've kind of, I stole this, I think Charlie Francis is who developed kind of the 95% range. I've kind of done it now while I do a sprint session, and previously, I go out there, I do 20 reps, something absurd. But now, if I'm outside of that 95% of my PR range, I just cut the workout. Other than that, though, honestly, my training hasn't changed too radically yet. Knock on wood, the longevity's been pretty good to me so far. Still do a lot of max effort, still do a lot of volume, I think, and I think especially for my body weight, just because my body's kind of adjusted to being able to tolerate that. But for me, the biggest thing, and this is really something that's developed, over the past 6 to 10 months, really recently, has been trying to cut out just some of that junk volume, set a range, you know what I mean, get within 95% of my PR, whether it's on a 10 Excel, 10 Fly, whatever it is, and as soon as the reps fall out of that range, cut it, because you're not getting anything back, you're just getting fatigue.
Yeah, I definitely follow a similar tune to Brandon. I think it was that the minimal effective dose style has kind of been my methodology the past 3 years. Talking about horse cocking weight when you're younger, I'm glad I went through the get my back squat up. I was doing 5x5, 405, where it would take me 2 hours to do a session, do one set of 5 at 405, and you're sitting down for 8 minutes. And then it's okay, you can't walk the next day. I mean, that's to your point. I think there's the time and place for that is
Everybody
young,
needs
and I'm
to go
glad.
through that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Everybody needs to go through that.
100%. I'm glad I did that in my early 20s when my recovery was higher. Still had athlete dining hall food, so I didn't need to eat $80 of food a day. So, and I don't think that would crush me now. There's no way I'd be able to do that with my sprint training and stuff. So I'm glad I had that foundation, because fast forward to last year, pretty much from May on to push champs, I mean, I hit a PR in the power clean, and I had a similar methodology to Brandon, where it was I was doing lifts, trying to just go for a maximum stimulus as opposed to just the sheer weight. It'd be, okay, let's make 365 pounds as hard as possible. So I'll load it up, super deep pause, 3-second pause, and explode up for speed. And then when I notice, okay, the speed's starting to go down, or the intent is not quite where it was, I'm cutting it, and I wasn't really doing many back down sets. I mean, doing that, I hit a 400-pound power clean pretty much midsummer, and I think the 3 or 4 months leading up to that, I don't think I had squatted over 400 pounds more than 3 times going into that. Granted, a lot of it was just maximal intent. I'm taking 360 to 375 for a deep pause, sometimes with chains, and exploding up as fast as I can. And I mean, that still gave me enough stimulus to produce the outputs to produce a 400-pound clean. But yeah, it's really shifted into the minimal effective dose style, and I'm still making progress in all aspects of it. So, and I think that kind of came about also as a byproduct of me needing to do that to survive, because the conventional volume was just not working for me. Like I said, I'd skip the GPP of sprinting. I can't do the same program that Brandon our decathlete on our team did, where they had all these years of the track volume. So when I see, oh, we're doing these ways and then we've got this amount of squats, I can't survive that right now, and that's just a small adaptation I have to make to myself. But I still think, I mean, keeping that in mind, that the methodology is still yielding progress, and that's what works for me.
Yeah, when it comes to like I like what you're saying there about, you're loading up a back or a front squat or whatever, and you're pausing, and the intent every rep, every set, once it starts to come down, you're like, all right, like we're done now. We kind of do a similar thing with, sprinting with people in the summer and stuff. Like when we're doing fly 10s, Otto and I will have like a number in our minds of how many reps they should get. But say someone's running 102, 102, 102, 104, 101, and then their next one's like 107, 108. We're like, done. We may have had 2 or 3 more reps in mind, but it's like now you're just getting shit. Now your reps are just shit. Like you're done for the day, and keeping that in mind, so we're actually getting good quality reps every time.
That works actually for a few different types of athletes, because by the same token, there will be guys that can handle, like you were saying, Brandon, just absurd amounts of volume, and they'll, like, their first 5, they'll slowly be getting faster in their like top speed times, and then they keep going and they can keep holding on to that speed. And that's something where it's really hard to self-identify what kind of athlete you are. Like, I think we're all at the point where we kind of know where our strengths and weaknesses lie, but when you're, later in high school, early in college, using those metrics to identify how much volume you can handle and then train that. Right? Because if we have a kid that can take 10 reps and is getting faster each time and can handle that high output level of reps, keep training that. Don't cut it back. Like, keep training it. Push. Whereas you have another athlete who teeters out at like 1 or 2. All right, you're done, because now you're risking injury if you're dropping by like a 10% or more than that between your like last couple reps. Now fatigue sets in, and this is where kind of injuries start to pop up.
Yeah, and we got to use other ways to build up your work capacity.
Yeah, I do believe sometimes
keep that speed going.
Yeah. I do believe sometimes too in striking when the iron is hot. Like, you do need kind of like a sharp cutoff. But like, for example, like that day where I went out and I did like 12 10-yard excels, which was more than I planned on doing. But each one was 150, 151, 150 back and forth. And eventually I put a hard cap on it because I'm like, I have a whole another remainder of the week of training to do. But like on that day, maybe I was going out with the intent of doing 8 and I ended up doing 12 just because it stayed within that range and I never fell out of it. I mean, the last rep I think was 153 when I finally cut it, which was still well within that 95% range. So I do occasionally believe in striking when the iron's hot, but you still do need to keep it within that parameter.
Well, I think that's what we try to do with when we have our athletes on program. Sometimes they'll come in and they'll, they have their reps and sets and they have their workout, their training session for that day, but they could come in super fatigued and feeling like crap, so we're scrapping the volume. Or they're coming in great and they're asking us, can I max today? Like, can I max bench today? So then if they're really moving weight, sometimes we'll just change it and say, like,
gotta be
go for it, like, get it.
That happened last week with Greg. Greg, sophomore in high school. He was like, his bench was easy. We were doing pause sets, moving weight. And I was like, hey, you ever bench 225 before? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, do one more and go hit 225, hit a PR, even though it's not on program for the day. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I got 2 things that I really want to cover. And I'll let you, we'll go. There's one that's kind of funny that I think everyone might have a good story about. And then there's another that I think is really important for just athletes trying to navigate their own career. So we can decide which one you want to go first. The first one is, what is the worst training advice that you have gotten from a respected professional individual? Or it could just be someone that is not, they don't have to have any credentials or anything, but the worst training advice in your athletic career, because I think that could be kind of funny to see what some people have been told that turned out to not be true. And then what was kind of, this is probably more so for Carsten, because I actually don't know much about this, is how did you kind of approach sports, or what was kind of like your mindset going into training? Because I think that something that can be that I would argue is the most important aspect in going through like physical endeavors. We use sport as kind of that media, but is the psychology and the way that you're talking to yourself behind how you're doing these things is really, really important, because I don't know if people think that much about it, but just reflecting back on the careers and having conversations with all these guys. I mean, there's four of us from really diverse backgrounds in athletics, but I'm seeing a pattern with the type of athletes that I've been running into in the last few years, where they all approach training, competition, and sport with a very similar mindset of passion, discipline, and you could call it delusion or, right, optimism, where you're really trying to achieve like this thing that's just outside of your grasp. And there's something addicting about going for that, even if you fall short, which I always say is the most important piece of sport, is like continuously kind of missing your PRs, your goals over and over again, because I think that sets you up mentally very well for, anything that you want to do, because all of a sudden it's not as difficult. But let's start with worst training advice, because I think we've been pretty professional and serious here, which is good by everybody. But worst training advice you got?
I can't tell you the exact worst training advice I got, but I can tell you the fucking person I wanted to listen to the least every time he fucking spoke to me in the training room, and that was Needle Dick fucking Ned, a GA when I was at Merrimack. And every time this dude spoke, he was 125, glasses, never touched a weight, and 125 skinny fat. And I'm like, dude, I'm a Division I football player, and you're getting mad at me as I'm benching like 365, saying your hips aren't on the bench. Like, every single time I was in the weight room, I'm like, you look like you've never lifted a weight in your life. Don't fucking speak to me. And that really bothers me. But that is quite literally every time I think of like the worst person or coach you've had like in the weight room, I think of that person. I can't tell you the worst training advice I've gotten, but when I think of bad weight room experiences, it was going into lift every day with that guy telling me what to do.
Okay. Now, so lack of expert leadership when being coached. If they haven't really, they don't have experience, if they haven't proven themselves as an expert, that grinds your gears.
I mean, yeah, and you don't have to be an expert in verbiage and like things but if you're gonna be the guy that's like, I know this and this and this, you have to at least be strong or fast or athletic or something. Like you can't just be this little dork pud who's like, well, you got to do it like this, and then not do it yourself.
Well, that's a form of expertise. Yeah. Like even if Carsten doesn't have, I don't know if you have any certifications or credentials or degrees in this, you don't, but you've done it, and that is expert leadership.
Yes, I would,
so
exactly.
You have value. And that's kind of been the whole idea of like getting guys on this podcast, is whether they've been doing it for 30 years or 5 or 2, is doing is your credentials. You've done it. You have experience doing it. And that, I would argue, is a lot more valuable than regurgitating books to people or studies, because that really requires minimal effort, discipline, and skill to do. Because, I mean, if you're literate, congratulations, you can regurgitate things you read on the internet and call yourself a cowboy if you want, do whatever you want. But yeah, that's why we try to stay with people who've done it. Carsten, what's the worst training advice that you've got?
It was hard to dial this into one specific advice, but I can kind of, this will tie into the second question, but I can explain a kind of mindset instilled that I've seen, especially prevalent in swimming, that I think leads itself to poor performance come race day. And one thing that's a unique psychological trait, like I said, this will tie into the second question, is that I've found correlates between some of the most high performance swimmers, and I've been lucky enough to race with the junior national team, represent the U.S. at World University Games, and was on NCAA championship relay with 3 other Olympians. I was the only one who didn't make the Olympics on that relay, so around the highest levels of swimming.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about how good Carsten is at swimming. Should have
mentioned. Yeah, we should gas him. Yeah, we should gas
you up more.
Sorry. We'll put it in. We'll chop it up and do some more like Carsten glazing.
Multiple-time All-American.
Right up there with Eddie Hall as a junior world champ.
I wish. Thank you. But one thing that I've noticed is that you have two distinct. One, this idea, this archetype that I found with some of the most high-performance swimmers was this, and it gets perceived as laziness or lackadaisical, but they have this like intuitive connection with themselves and how they're feeling. And sometimes they'll deviate from the practice or the programming for the day or shift things around. Or in race day, they'll be like, oh, I feel good with doing this warm up. I'm good. I'm cutting it. I'm done. I saw in swimming, you get a lot of athletes who get stuck in the, oh my God, they don't have any self-trust. They don't have any intuition. They put their entire trust, and this isn't the fault of coaches, but they'll be like, oh my God, I can't race today. I need my coach to take my times and do my paces, or I'm going to fall apart mentally. And I found that you had a lot of, not necessarily carefree attitude, but I'd say like an intuitive connection between really elite level performers who have that adaptability, can on race, to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to do this and I feel good and I'm ready to race versus, and maybe this kind of stems from a lack of trust, but you had the same other individuals who they get hyper fixed in practice and are just they don't have that connection themselves and depend entirely on their state of performance on the external, like the coach's validation, the coach's performance, all the programming, everything like this. Like I said, I'm not trying to detract from performance and program. I'm saying like don't ignore your coach, but I'm saying they're also part and parcel with it. I think you have to have a degree of internal trust and internal intuition that gives you that adaptability, because at the end of the day, your coach can't always just be around you and hover around you and hold your hand on every single race day or game day or practice and stuff. And I found really elite level performers kind of were able to have that, and sometimes some people didn't quite have that intuition or self-trust to the same degree. I don't know that.
No. It was a good answer. Basically, just I'll simplify this down as best I can. You tell me if I nail it. Is understanding your own body, really having a really good relationship and understanding, especially when you're starting out early in sports, because by the time you get to that elite level, they've understood this. It's been cemented, but really understanding your own body and how it works, and that's something that is really hard to convey to other people, right? It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is my body. I know what's good. This is my warm-up today. I'm going to hit that number. Oh, but you didn't do this exact thing. Well, I know my body. It's a double-edged sword, though, because then you get people, because Troy and I run into it a lot, where people say, I know my body, like, I know what I'm doing. It's like, dude, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, I'm telling you. So that's interesting to hear, because, yeah, you do want, the best thing you can do, I think, especially early in your athletic career, is understanding what works for you. What do you have to do? And feeling like, what does it feel like? Really being, I guess, I don't know if mindfulness is the right word, but really being attentive to when you're on your best day, what did you do before? What are you feeling like? What did everything like leading up to this? I had an awesome performance. I had a good performance today. What led up to this? And being able to remember that and replicate that and say, oh, well, I did this. I didn't do this. I didn't worry about this. I think that's really important. By the same token, it's also really important to not be completely delusional and say, this is my body. I know what I'm doing. And then go out, not warm up and blow a muscle.
Oh, 100%. It's funny that you say that, because, yeah, it absolutely is a double-edged sword. And, I mean, at USC, a famous workout we would do was the X, Y, and Z set. It would be like 4 sets of, you choose the distance. You can do like a 75, 50, or 25. The next set will be like 50, 25, or a fast 15, and it like declines, but you can choose the distance. And you, on one hand, you could have like an athlete who's like, okay, I'm going to do on this first set, the X, I'm going to do a 50, and then I'm going to do 25 here. Oh, I lifted. I'm a little bit more fatigued. I'm going to like get some resistance and do this and be really honest, intuitive with themselves. And on the other end, I saw like definitively kids would use that and just choose the lowest fucking distance to slack, like at high level. They were like, it's like they had X, Y, and Z, they're choosing the lowest distance each one. And it wasn't out of, okay, this is what I need to work on, or this is how I'm feeling because I'm a little more fatigued from weight, so I'm feeling more explosive, maybe I can bring it up. It was, I can get away with the lowest possible thing that won't do anything for me. So absolutely, to your point, yeah, it's hard, but that still aligns in my eyes with being intuitive and honest, because the people who are choosing the lowest, they're still not being honest with themselves, at the end of the day. Yeah. But yeah, continue.
So self-discipline, right? So that if that's what you see as the most important or the reoccurring element of top performance, then to get there, to try and, I guess, dull the other side of the double-edged sword would be like really being disciplined and honest with yourself. Like really making sure that if this is something that, is a priority for you, are you putting in all the work? Like, are you moving the needle forward? Are you doing everything you can? Is it moving forward? Because I find, especially with myself, I do a lot of that deviating from what I have scripted or how I'm feeling on that day, but it's always, all right, is everything moving forward the way I want it to? Yes. Is it going to be exactly as I script? No. But it always has to be like full tilt effort. Even on days where I don't feel 100%, sometimes it's days where you just have to be honest with yourself and say, you know what? Yeah, I was up too late. I didn't get enough sleep, but I have to keep myself accountable and say, well, I got to roll in on a Sunday and do max weight in a strength block or something. Or I don't really want to run. My hamstrings are a little sore. I got to get these reps in. Like, I got to do it. They might be ugly, but I have to do it. And that's kind of tough. That's a really fine line, and that takes a lot of introspection, I think. That's something that's really, really difficult to do. The earlier you can do that is keeping yourself really disciplined, but also not falling under that cushion of, I don't really want to do this work. Oh, well, that means I need to rest, so I need to do less. Well, no, it's like that fine line of pushing yourself as hard as possible, but really understanding what your own body and what you are capable of. So that's good. That's a bit complex for some of the younger GPC listeners, I think. I don't know if they're ready for that, but that's a really good piece of info right there. Brandon, what's the worst advice you got? And you can tie it into the second question if you want, like Carsten did.
Worst advice, I can't name who. Carsten's going to know who. That was to drink straight seed oils to gain weight, like to drink literal vegetable oil.
That's not
carry
real.
it around. I swear on my life. Can't name who, can't go in depth because it's kind of a conflict of interest. But I would say that I was advised relatively recently that you should carry around a thing of cooking oil like you would like
one gallon jug.
Yeah,
I've heard olive oil. I've heard people drink olive oil people are like, no, I got to put on weight. I got to drink olive oil. They're not talking about olive oil.
No,
olive
oil is fine.
No, I agree, but they're not talking about that, right?
No, vegetable
seed oil was like
oil,
verbatim
like
stated.
Literal, yeah. Verbatim seed oil. Can't really elaborate. It's a bit of a conflict of interest. But to kind of tie back to what I was going to say is, in terms of philosophy, one of the things I quickly realized was if I don't want to do something, like in my programming, usually that's what I need the most because we're so prone to accepting our biases. When I was a sprinter, like I hated doing speed endurance. I hated doing lactate work. I didn't want to do 300 repeats. I didn't want to do 400 repeats, but I knew I needed it. In that first chunk of the summer when you're on your own in the off season, that's like when you really have to lock in and hit that. Now, thankfully, in bobsled, I don't have to do as much as that lactic work, but, I loved sprinting. I love plyos. One thing that I've really realized, and, better late than never. It's another thing that I've really worked on in the past, 6 to 10 months. For me, it's been high volume squatting. I hated doing ass to grass, high volume back squatting, and that's something I've really had to hammer. I mean, you're hitting, as someone who's, literally pretty stiff, you're hitting uncomfortable positions, oftentimes with heavy weight. It's not fatiguing, it's exhausting. It's not immediately satisfying in the way that, clearing a big ass hurdle or running, a 10-yard PR is, but it's an integral part of being a successful athlete. And so, maybe to sum it up for the younger listeners, it really is, if it's something that you're not looking forward to do, be honest with yourself, and it's probably something that you need. That's something I learned really quick.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get into some Q&A, or did you have more, Otto?
I have a couple Q&As, but if you got Q&A from the IG that people ask, let's go. Let's go on that. Yeah, Q&As are fun. That was a good job. That was a good 45 minutes of fury right there, guys.
All right, here we go. Fuck, marry, kill. Safety squat bar or safety bar squat, front squat, Zercher squat. I'll go first. For me, I'm gonna marry the Zercher squat. I'm gonna fuck the safety bar, and I'm gonna kill the front squat.
Wow. Yeah. Hot take.
That's me.
I'll take this. I'll kill the Zercher. I just never ever do those. I'll fuck the safety squat bar, but I'll marry the front squat because that is a staple of mine. The front squat is probably, I'd say I do it almost like at a 50% of my squats are
You can front squat with a safety bar. Just keep that in mind. Just so you know. Safety bar, you can really do everything. So you might as well marry the safety bar because you could Zercher, front, and regular safety bar squat and hat. I mean, the safety bar is the best bar when you really think about it. But
I'm interpreting this as like a safety bar squat specifically as a move.
I also interpret
that's kind of how it's meant, I'm sure.
Because I mean, I don't know, Brandon. You got it.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Dude, front squat, marry it without even meeting it first. That's that is like lift number 1 or 2.
Recipe for failure. Marrying without meeting, crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, that for a front squat, for a sprinting back, front squat. For sure, I don't really have like a definitive opinion on Zercher. So I'd probably still fuck Zercher. And yeah, I'd probably get rid of safety bar squat. I just don't do them. I don't see necessarily anything that isn't satisfied by other movements that is by. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but
I don't think there's any right or wrong, because
it's all preference.
Like we talked about earlier. Yeah, it's what you want. I think that it's a good question, Coach. Okay, we'll keep it relative to like what I'm doing for training right now, because I think there would be I would have a different opinion with like just in general, but like specific to what I'm doing, I would need to Zercher. I'd be capped off by what I'd be able to hold and front squat. So I would probably marry the safety bar just because I lean further away from front squat. I don't love front squats. I think that they are good, but I don't love them as much as you do, Karsten. I have been playing around with them, but I haven't fallen in love with them. I'm dating them. And then safety bar, just for the fact that I am a big fan of loading up a ton of weight and pairing that with contrast training, like conjugate style. And I think with both front squat and Zercher squat, if you're going to have one of those, you need something to be able to go really heavy on. I think you need to get under really heavy weight all the time. So I couldn't do that with front and Zercher, because at some point my upper body and back is going to be the limiting factor, so that I'm not training my legs with as much as they're capable of. So I'd probably marry safety bar and engage with coitus with the front squat, and then I would probably kill Zercher for my training purposes right now. I wouldn't kill them. I would exile them. Yeah, killing and the F word. Oh, come on, guys.
Yeah, what is this rated?
I don't know. We found out that the Good Performance page has been rated not for children for like...
on YouTube?
No, for like 3 years on Instagram. We're like,
on Instagram.
It's like, it must be 13
no wonder why
years
it's tough to get our tough to get our youth program launched, you know.
All right, next one. I don't know if anyone has ever had this injury. Advice for coming back stronger and better from an ACL. I've never had an ACL. I don't know if any of you have, and if you have, you should be the first ones to chime in on it. But
I'll be the first to chime in. I haven't had one, but I'll be the first.
Karsten, Brandon, either of you guys ever had ACL?
Dude, I have not played a lateral movement sport.
Yeah,
In 10 years.
These guys?
I didn't know. I mean, you never know. People do it.
These
Almost
two guys?
11 years.
Deceleration? No,
couldn't be.
They only accelerate.
No, couldn't be.
The brakes decelerate them, or the wall in swimming. I think the best advice, and something that we've used a lot for all injuries coming back when you get past that like cleared for movement, is low intensity plyometrics. Getting a ton of reps at whatever intensity you can handle in the motion that you're so weak in. So I know that with Tim Hayes at BC coming back from his ACL, I worked with him. We've done it for guys that have had sprained ankles, MCLs, like everything in lower body. I did it with some upper body stuff too, although it's a little bit different, is doing low intensity plyometrics. So for an ACL, the biggest thing with ACLs is deceleration. So I have told guys, and it's been pretty successful with everyone that's done it, and this has gone for pretty much every injury that guys have come back from, is just practice going forward and backward in place, especially on the injured leg, at a really, really low intensity, and increasing that volume to hundreds of reps a day. Like to the point where, you know, if you were jump roping, that's technically a form of plyometric, and that will really help with the elasticity. It's the same thing when you're coming back from an injury. You need to rebuild everything that's involved with that motion of decelerating and stopping. You need an absurd amount of volume, but you really need to manage it in terms of intensity, because if you're coming back from that injury, the structures in your knee are not going to be able to handle it. You probably experience some muscle atrophy just from being in your brace and coming back from surgery, but just practice cutting at really low intensities and slowly increase that volume. I remember when I had a Liz Frank fracture, that was how I came back, was really like ridiculously low intensity. That's really hard to get through, especially high performing athletes, because you always want to just do more and be like gritting your teeth and pushing. But it's to the point where it feels like you're not doing work, not like physical therapy where I'm squeezing a foam ball to fix my hand, to the point where you're really thinking about what your body is doing and what you're really bad at coming back from this injury, and just slowly and consistently getting reps. So for ACL, lots of low intensity plyometrics in those cutting positions. So if you're a guy that moves laterally, a lot of lateral. ACL is a deceleration injury, or it happens usually when people are decelerating. Sometimes it's contact, but it's to stabilize the knee when you're breaking down. So back and forth really slowly, and then gradually building up the intensity and the distance that you're doing that. That would be my advice for someone coming back from that injury. That would be my advice for someone coming back from any injury, is starting absurdly slow and those low intensity plyometrics, because you still need that bounce. You're an athlete, you still need that bounce. It's the same thing with a shoulder, elbow, hand, anything. Like, you can start just pushing a med ball. If you had an upper body
wall,
injury,
you can just stand on and face a wall.
Yeah. Like if you had a shoulder deal, like just doing, like, push yourself off the wall slowly over and over again, and then gradually increase the intensity. That's something I don't hear talked about, and I'm going to keep saying it every single time a question like that comes up, because I was never really taught it. It was something that I kind of just like figured out, and it has been a game changer for coming back from injuries, whether they be catastrophic like surgery related injuries or just small like tweaks. That's huge.
Yeah, another thing with the ACL too, and it's I think we've talked about this briefly with Brandon, and we talked about it, Zach Evanesh too, was just you need to start your rehab sooner. Like, people will finish surgery and they'll sit around for a month. And we talked about this with Zach, and he was like, yeah, I did ACL, and like a week later I was doing like a variation of lunges, and I came back faster than anyone expected. Like, you need to start your rehab soon. Like, people wait around too long, especially with ACL. Like they say, it's a little bit more of an aggressive rehab. You need to start as soon. Like, you need to start very soon, and that will help you come back stronger, I think. And we talked about that before, Brandon, too.
What kind of injuries, Carsten and Brandon, too? Are there injuries in swimming, pulled lats? Like, what kind of... Don't laugh.
That was too deep. You hit the bottom.
I mean, that could happen. The most common injury, just because obviously you're not producing super high forces through your tendons in the water compared to like striking the ground in a triple jump or change of direction. But you do, I would say the most common swimming injury is going to be like tendonitis in your rotator cuff, just from the sheer volume of swimming. I mean, that's probably the nicest thing and why it's a suburban sport, is you kids won't get injured or concussed doing it. But that you never see injuries, and I think that kind of was a big that's another awakening too, coming in the bobsled, having to do explosive performance and sprinting. I'm like, oh shit, I have to take warm up seriously. In swimming, sometimes you just do a 200 and you're good and ready to go. Like, I could not do like sprinting after like getting in, jogging like for 30 feet and back and be like, oh, we're ready to go. So that, luckily, there's really no, outside of like shoulder tendonitis, you don't really ever get injuries in swimming.
You do anything specific to manage that? Like, is there like a specific way of training in swimming to kind of like keep your shoulders healthy?
That was more common to the distance swimmers. I don't really ever remember anyone who is like mid-distance or below getting that, because keep in mind, if you're a distance swimmer, which means like you swim the 500, the mile, or you're an open water swimmer, which we even had open water swimmers on our team, but they swim 5 and 10K, like they're getting sometimes between 10 to 15,000 yards of swimming a day. And I think it's just like sheer volume just degrades the joints. I mean, I had two, water polo, obviously our aquatic cousin. I had two friends out of college had double hip replacement in their hips at like 22, 23, because you're just egg beating all your life for hours. I think you just degrade the joints from the sheer time. Like I said, I only saw like the people who would be sidelined from practice with a rotator cuff issue. Or icing it after was almost always distance swimmers. But I think that's kind of like the benefit of being a breaststroker, where you have a very distinct or unique range of motion compared to backstroke, butterfly, freestyle, similar shoulder ranges of motion, whereas breaststroke, the volume's lower and just the I guess the biomechanics are different. But I think probably load management would have been the best thing for those tendonitis related issues. Unfortunately, I wasn't really aware of like the management of it, and I never had to deal with it, so I don't have any stories of like, oh, what I did to deal with it, but that was just kind of what I experienced.
Carsten, did you deal with like central nervous system fatigue at all? And how did it feel in swimming versus in bobsled, and with the training related to it?
Yeah, so there's a unique degree of nervous system fatigue in swimming, and that became more prevalent to me because I started lifting heavier and more often towards the end of my college experience. And I mean,
Right.
when I started college, I did not have like big numbers. Like I was like squatting 225. So
Yeah, that was
you
another
wouldn't feel the
question we should
fatigue as
ask.
much. And then when I get to senior year of college, when I'm squatting upwards in like the low fours, high threes, then you'll feel it more. But I think the biggest thing that made a difference with dealing with that I still have to this day, and this is hard because I understand that this is a huge cultural aspect of a lot of sports, was I really cut back alcohol a ton my senior year, and I think that made the biggest difference for me. Absolutely huge, especially because Monday would be the heavy days, and I just was tired of going into like the start of the week when we do our big compounds feeling like shit, and cutting alcohol like made a huge difference with just feeling way better throughout the week. But I can elaborate that more, but that was my introduction to it. But you don't feel it as much in swimming, you just get tired faster because you don't have as much of like a high neurological output even in sprint events. It's different than like, oh, I'm like I can feel my vertical down because, or my sprints down. It's more so that, oh crap, I just feel like I'm lagging today. Like my muscles are fatiguing out faster. And like I said, the biggest thing I did to offset that was really cutting alcohol, because like every other big Division I sports program, like just the binge drinking is heavy across every team at SC, regardless of the sport.
Yeah. Were you experiencing a lot of CNS fatigue at all from the swimming though, or was it purely from the secondary training, from the weight training?
Way more from the secondary weight training, and that was one
Yeah.
thing I noticed that kind of I had to deal with because I was lifting far more than other teammates, and I would say how the CNS fatigue manifested in swimming, and it might not even be CNS fatigue, generalized fatigue. I have no background in like exercise science, so I could be like completely messing up these terms, but I'll say how it manifested. If we were doing like threshold work, and now this could have coincided with gaining more weights from gaining more body mass and weight from swimming, but I just noticed that my towards the end of college, my ceiling and sprint times all increased. Like I had best times across the board. Just my
Right.
threshold in volume reduced. Like instead of being able to hold like 8 100s at a time, that slowly went down. And I think that was something that I had to manage because I was lifting more than any other. It wasn't even close to the next teammate on the swim team. Swimming weights is not like the priority, and most people don't care for it. Put like very low energy. I'm sure it's similar in track where a lot of guys are like, oh, I'm just going through the motions with it. I just would notice it. Like I would sometimes like, especially in like the more threshold related sets, it gets harder to maintain your numbers. You feel fatigue come about faster, but that was
Just
probably
the story I heard, Carson, it was with Brian Kula in Colorado. He had taken a high school swim team and they had never touched weights before, and they were doing weights and sprint work dry land. And apparently, like, and I don't know the story exactly, I heard it secondhand. Apparently afterwards, he had them for 8 or 12 week microcycle. They shattered their records after, pretty much because they were just, it was just neural training. Did you feel any benefit like that from doing lifting or sprint work as it related to coming in and then swimming?
we did very minimal sprint work, like in the weights. I mean, we did a lot of jumps and stuff, so it's hard to say, like, because my full exposure to sprinting came with bobsled, so it's hard for me to say, oh, how much did sprinting impact. I wish I was exposed to that. I think that would have been a great cross training. Just to your point, I think it's like the rising tide lifts all boats. If you can improve your neurological output in one thing, I'm sure it has to carry over to swimming. But I do think we were heavy on resistance training, and I do think like my ability to, when I have like we would do like buckets or parachutes, my times resisted and my tips, that all went up, I think, and that coincided strongly with just getting stronger and doing more explosive work in the weight room, and just when my vertical jump, because my senior year, that was when I hit my vertical jump on a pad PR. So I think that that's all correlated. I do think the, maybe not your endurance, but your ability to produce more force and your
Right.
top end speed is probably influenced by weights and your neurological output.
Thank you. Coach, you got any more Q&As for us? I got some Q&As. Big competition. You just crushed it. You just finished something that you were kind of locked in for over time. Guilty pleasure that you wouldn't otherwise do in a training block after a big competition. What's your guys' go-to thing? I think I know what yours is, Coach. Coach, did you freeze?
No, I was just waiting for someone else to speak.
But he
You guys
called
don't
on
have
you.
you guys don't have guilty pleasures?
I don't think
No?
I understand the question. What do you mean by it?
You just finished a meet. What are you doing afterward? What's your guilty pleasure? Are you getting Wendy's 4 for $4? Are you getting a Big Mac? Are you binge drinking? Are you
Yeah, I'm eating whatever I want. I'm probably getting like a triple at In-N-Out, protein style.
Okay, so it's food.
With animal style fries. Yeah, 100% food.
Okay, cool. All right, I guess it was a bad question. We can just move on. Screw me.
No, it's not a bad question. I just thought someone would answer. I thought I was waiting on Brandon and I was waiting on Brandon or Carsten. He didn't call on me. He said, "I think I know what yours is, Coach." He didn't call on me.
I got others. I mean,
if it was me, what we're doing is say I prep for a jiu-jitsu tournament. I win the fucking tournament, right? Maybe I had to lose some fucking weight for this tournament, right? We're getting the girls. We're going out to dinner. We're getting drunk, and we're eating, and I'm eating a fuck ton of food. I'm eating steak and cheese egg rolls. I'm going burgers, maybe sliders. I'm going all out. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Nice, Brandon. You got any specifics? Nope. Okay, Carsten, you got anything?
Sorry, I cut out.
Right, bad question. All right, Carsten, go.
Yeah, I mean, it probably would be food. I was on kind of the Jenny Craig weight reduction diet the whole season because we were like 1 kilo from being overweight like every fucking race at World Cups. Like that sucked. Like the fucking the morning of World Champs at like 7 a.m, I'm like getting on a scale in my underwear to like make sure that we can race that day. So that's like where we're at. And I think after that, Chuck had like his engagement party celebration for like the whole team at like downtown Lake Placid on Main Street. Like it was at second floor of like a restaurant bar. I think they had like this like it was like where it's all the silver platters of all the food and stuff, and they had one thing with these like pretzel rolls with like cheese, and I swear to God 2 pounds of it. I like felt fucking horrible the next day, but I was like, I'm gonna eat 2.5 pounds of pretzels and cheese. So I did that. I went that morning, I was like weighing on a scale, like I didn't drink any water. I was like, will we race today at the finals of World Champs to like eating 2.5 pounds of cheese and pretzel bites? So that was the best feeling ever, and those tasted worth of it. I mean, it felt horrible in the bathroom the next morning, but it was worth it in that moment.
Nice. All right, I got another question, unless you got one that you're really excited about, Coach. What is one thing you would want young athletes listening, or, I mean, we can even crop this up. What is one thing you want athletes to know if they're chasing a dream, specifically within sport in our realm of understanding? We can go, this is kind of aimed more at Carsten, because I kind of know Brandon, Troy, we've gone over this, but Carsten, if you had one piece of advice, one thing that if there was a kid who had some dream in sports, what do you want them to know definitively? Like, you need to know this, you need to come to understand this.
I'll give like, there's two. There's one that's more kind of like, I guess, esoteric, and the other is what I would like literally, what I say to like most kids and stuff anyways. But I'd say number one, I think obviously you just have to like trust in yourself and trust in the process. I mean, obviously on paper it didn't make sense for me that the change from swimming to bobsled would work, and a lot of people I talked to initially like thought it was like a joke. But all this time, all the years, through all the issues, I was like, you know, I can still make this work. We're still going to stick to the process. There's going to be ups and downs, but if you have this goal, I mean, there's going to be hiccups along the way, but it just keeps sticking to it, keep setting small goals along the way, whether it's, okay, well, on the way, I'm going to get my vertical up a little bit, or I'm going to get my squat up. But I think that probably would be my main advice. And then my second thing that I always say is, I think this is so universal no matter the sport, but I think the kids should just get stronger from like a younger age. Like, get strong at the compounds, get strong at full range of motion. I think you've got like, now maybe if you're like 8 years old, you don't want to be like maxing your back squat, but you see Chinese Olympic lifters who are like 11, 12 years old, like clean and jerking like 300 pounds. I'm like, they're probably fine and stuff. So I think there's nothing hurts you from an earlier age, just getting, maybe even developing the full range of motion, or just getting more comfortable and setting your body up to have that foundation to really develop the full. Because for me, and this ties into what I said earlier, I don't think anything really had as much of a transformation in expressing my athleticism. Now, like I said, a lot of it has genetic underlyings, but what expressed it was getting stronger in the full range of motion compound lifts. So that would be my other advice. Just prep your body and get into that early as possible.
Get stronger.
Exactly. Yeah,
we can get simple. Behind that. Get good. Get stronger.
All right, this one I'm going to have to paint you a scenario, but the question is it acceptable to wear jeans in the morning? Okay, so here's the scenario. You wake up on a Sunday morning, you got jack shit to do. Like, you ain't got nothing to do on that Sunday. And you put jeans on. just to lounge around the house. Is that acceptable or no? I think it's absolutely unacceptable. Like, you're just hanging out, lounging around the house. What the fuck are you doing putting jeans on? That can't be comfortable. That's my take.
Yeah, I can comment on this. I'm saying this personally as someone who's like incredibly anti-jean. I don't think I've worn jeans since the 7th grade. I don't own jeans. Like, I wore jeans once, and it's so out of my personality. I like wore jeans once, and like people who saw me, like, there's something off about you. Like, something's going on, and they like detected how off it was. So I hate jeans. I think they're incredibly uncomfortable. But it's just funny because I like I said, I don't think I've owned jeans since the 7th grade. No matter, I've been massively, and I think this is like a strength and conditioning thing to like always wear like sweatpants and like an athletic, and like the official clothes of strength and conditioning. But if I'm wearing any pants and it's like not my work pants when I go into the office, it's like Under Armour or Nike sweatpants. That's it.
Good take.
Brandon?
Dude, I don't wear jeans either. Like, me and Carsten have the unofficial OTC fit. We wear the same exact thing. It's literally like shorts and a friggin' wife beater, and it's like -10 out, and everyone like makes fun of us and says that we're from Southern California from doing it. Carsten's not even from Southern California. He's a transplant. I guess I technically am too, but at least I'm from the state limits. So no, I don't know how the three of you could even fit in jeans. I have like the slimmest legs possible, and jeans like still don't fit me.
I'll tell you how. Very elastic, stretchy jeans.
Coach, are you getting up on a Sunday and putting jeans on?
I wish I was wearing jeans right now, but I'm not. No, but I do wear jeans. I hadn't worn jeans for many years, but I've been forced to wear jeans when I.
No, yeah, understandable. Like if you have to like go out or something, you can put a pair of jeans on, sure.
Yeah, I'm anti-group. I'm anti-group think. So just out of spite of the question and everybody on this call, I very well might put jeans. I might wake up at 7 a.m. and put jeans on. Contrarian, I will. It won't be comfortable. I won't enjoy it, but I'll just do it just out of spite. That's what I would do. Yeah, I don't wear jeans often, but you know what? Yeah. Just because I don't like groupthink mentalities on whether you can or can't wear jeans.
Every time I wear jeans, my balls end up like in my stomach. Like I can never get a good pair of jeans that fits right. Like they're always too tight or they're too baggy, and I look goofy.
You gotta get really stretchy jeans. I'm telling you, really stretchy jeans with a belt. And they're not so bad. Like, basically, sweatpants that look like jeans. Like jeggings, but, like, they still have the pockets. But not so tight. I don't know. Soft jeans. I wouldn't do it. I think that's weird.
See, I don't like the look of when you have, like, pants that are, like, legging tight. Like, I've just grown out my legs, and I, like, came in from the office in my work pants, and Leah was like, "Are you wearing tights right now and stuff?" I feel like that's its own look you don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really found a solution. It's either wear extremely wide-cut boot jeans where I just look like my shoulders go down
straight down,
or I wear really stretchy jeans. It's like, are you wearing skinny jeans? No.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. You're now, like, by association assumed to be wearing skinny jeans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I am not the person to ask about fashion choices ever. Actually, Carsten, you know what my favorite fit of yours is? When you just walk around just in the purple training suit. Like, there's no training that day. Like, you're just walking.
Riley TJ picked him up from the Saranac airport, and there's a picture of it. Jamie, pull up the picture. There's a picture of Carsten in the sliding suit getting picked up at the airport, and you have like a body bag as your carry-on or whatever. You have like a 100-pound bag.
So jeans are vetoed on Sunday. Onesies, full jumpsuits are approved. Troy, you got another question? I say we give ourselves 10 more minutes. We'll call it an hour.
I got no real good ones right now. I mean, I got to put up another poll. There's a bunch of football-related questions that we can save for another day.
I got one. If you could travel, actually, I don't even have this written down. I'm looking at the screen like I have this plan, but I just thought of it. If you could exist, you are what you are, and let's say that your physical and mental attributes and skills like transfer to whatever this multiverse is. If you could be in any multiverse, what would it be? Fictional, non-fictional, it doesn't matter. It could be time period, anything. Like, it could be a video game world or a book or whatever. What would it be? Yeah, take some time.
What would yours be,
This
Coach?
is a deep question. I actually hadn't thought of an answer yet. I was going to think of one while someone else was answering. I mean, traversing Skyrim would be pretty sweet.
I was thinking Skyrim, too. You know, be nice, be awesome. I don't know, probably Poland. Probably move to Poland.
You can do that now.
Okay.
You can do that tomorrow.
All right. Great answer, Coach.
Brandon?
I want that to be a short.
I want to explore a Halo ring. That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, I wouldn't mind also being just in the Pokemon world, but I would be a Pokemon, not a trainer.
I think for me, it'd be too hard to turn down some of like the sci-fi, like the Dune or the Star Wars or the Halo universe, because you have the ability to like navigate different planets. You're not limited to like one setting, whether it's like Middle Earth or like Earth itself. At least if you like
or
expose
Poland.
yourself to if you're in the Star Wars universe, you're like, I can just go jump to different planets. Like it's like going to a different city, and I think the experience of that would be enticing.
Or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but you're still kind of cordoned to Middle Earth.
I would just spend my time in the mines of Moria.
You just moved to New Jersey.
Those would be my two. I'd either go to Poland or I'd be in The Sopranos. I think that would
Those
be...
are both like you could do that right now in 10 minutes.
I think Skyrim would be.
All right, I have
Star Wars is a very good one though. I didn't think about that. I didn't give myself enough time to think of.
Coach would be Jar Jar Binks if he was in Star Wars.
That's so disrespectful.
He jumped. Yo, you ever play with him in the Lego Star Wars game? The double jump was crazy.
Lego Star Wars would be your multiverse. Be a Lego.
Lego Star Wars. That's a good one.
Great game.
Lego Star Wars, the complete saga. That would be the multiverse. Yep. All right,
Hollywood
Brandon, what's
Jet?
your? What multiverse?
I told you Halo, dude. I'd be exploring the Halo rings.
They're
like
monsters,
after they won, so you're not like running into shit.
To like an elite.
Yeah. I feel like everybody fantasizes about, Halo and Star Wars, and I guess I'm even at fault. Coach might have the most realistic, because you want to be thrown into Star Wars or Skyrim or Halo. Next thing you know, you're not the main character. You're
you think you're the main character in Poland, dude? You'd be like,
if I ended up in Star Wars, I'd be fucking Jabba the Hutt. So why the hell would I join Star Wars?
I was thinking more, not even job. I was thinking like your nameless character that gets.
I'm the emu. I'm the fucking emu that gets sliced, and Luke has to hide in.
The tauntaun.
The tauntaun that gets sliced. I'm the one that dies, and Luke has to hide in. That's me.
You think you're the main character
for a greater cause?
In Poland? No, I don't need to be the main character. I could go live a very comfortable life in Poland, train wrestling, lifting, and be good. Or like Sopranos, I'd be like a side quest guy. I'd probably work at the Bada Bing, and that'd be it.
Gotta hold something real quick.
Give you something. Brandon, you had one last question, you said.
Yeah, last question, Carsten. What's the future after 2026? Are the rumors true? Are we gonna get a 50-meter breaststroke return?
Yes, that is looking like that's a very real possibility on the horizon. I think that's something that it's hard to really draw an equivalency. I guess it'd be like if the 60 became like an Olympic event. The thing about swimming is you have a even bigger breadth between the people who excel at the 100 and the 50. In the 50 stroke, I mean, it's literally like half the distance. You get people who really and it's not even an individual event at any level of collegiate or international swimming. So this is unprecedented and incredibly exciting, and I think it'd be cool to see how much this power journey transfers over. And I guess it would answer your question about that study about those swimmers who did do the sprinting and lifting. I think it'd be interesting to do some open meets and see, okay, let's hop back after years of training and see what the carryover to sprint breaststroke is, because we're still approaching the peak age, in my opinion, of like sprint swimming, early 30s for men.
I have some question and background about that question. What? There's a new event coming back?
Yeah, announced a few.
Educate us we live in a cave under a rock
in Poland.
With weights. No. In Massachusetts, Brandon.
Nice.
Yes, so this is something that's in swimming, the shortest event of stroke, or even in freestyle you have the 50, which is the shortest event in swimming that's individual. But you have the strokes, like backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly. At their individual level, the shortest distance is the 100. Now it has just been announced for the LA 2028 games, you will have the 50s of stroke making their individual debut at the games. And this is, and the funny thing is, a lot of people it had a lot of mixed sentiment. A lot of people in the comments were negative about it because there's this attitude in swimming that I hate, that you're not a real swimmer unless you do like the 400 IM. That's like saying, oh, you're not a real track athlete unless you run the 800 because that 100's too short. It's all just explosiveness. You have that attitude in swimming where they're like, especially old school coaches, it's shifting now, but there was this attitude that like the most important swimming event, everything should center around like the 500 free or the 400 IM. Like, that's the real swimming. So it had some negative sentiment, but the funny thing is a lot of people were saying, oh my God, you're going to have all these guys who retired from swimming like 8 years ago coming back, which is true. And I had some friends who were swimming around the same time as me who I know, and one of them messaged me for advice, was actively trying to set like masters records in the 50 breast, and I'm guarantee you they're all going to start flooding into Olympic trials for the 50. Now that's an option. I think you are going to see a big return of individuals who've been retired for a few years, and you're going to see the extension of the age of swimming continue, because a lot of people would just burn out from just a sheer volume and want to move on. But now, if you're older, you have a career, you want to do shorter distances, you can sustain elite level swimming with lower volume in the 50s, especially if you're older and you have that foundation.
That's awesome. So you're going for back-to-back Olympic appearances.
I think that would be the dream as far as I know. Obviously, there's been summer and winter athletes, whether I see speed skating and then sprint cycling or track and field and bobsled, that there's a long list of those individuals. But I've yet to see any dual winter summer swimmers.
That's awesome. That gives me goosebumps. Undeniability, what all men strive to be. Undeniably great. That's awesome. I didn't even know about that. That's cool. I wish there was. I don't think there's any other Olympic anything that I could throw my hat into the ring with, but that's super exciting. How do you think what do you think that transition is going to be like? Do you do any swimming right now at all? When was the last time you've been in water?
Alumni relays. Every year I'll do our alumni relays, and the funny thing is I beat my best times in season at alumni relays. And the funny thing is, at our alumni relays, we have had people come back even 5 years removed. Our coach, or one of our assistant coaches, I remember one alumni relays hit a PR in the 50 than when he was in college. So obviously this is very, very short distance, but I've been kind of following some of my friends who are trying to pursue these masters times and sprints. And I remember he was posting like, oh wow, beating my best 25 times from college. So I do think, given the short distance, there'll be a lot of positive carryover. That's what's exciting about it. But until I really see, I mean, like I said, from once a year swimming, which is about literally it, like of actual swimming in a lane pool, it's been only alumni relays. I've been coming back and going pretty much exact in season best times.
Why do you think that is, that you see people hitting PRs so late? And on minimal training?
That's a good question. The funny thing is, it's not like uniquely me. It's not like, oh, you can say, well, Karsten's doing that because he's doing all this bobsled training, so he's still technically staying in shape. You do see like guys hitting good use at a later age. I think part of it is just the natural progression of like men's strength and power. Right. I mean, most swimmers retire at the collegiate level at 21. We know that's so far from like your peak, you know, if you just, and that's the sad truth, is most athletes kind of cut things off at 21, 22, and then just work their conventional jobs and don't do any real training. So then you'd assume, oh, your peak's 21, 22. If you at least and now these people who did go on alumni relays, they're not training Olympic national team level bobsled competition, but those people aren't really in shape. They're still like going to the gym regularly. They might be doing some swimming, but they're not nearly doing the volume, but they're still producing, honestly, in a way, progress in their sprint time. So I think it's a combination of just your development as a man. I think we have this idea environmentally created from everyone retiring in sport. Like, what percentage of like athletes after the collegiate level go on and sustain high level training? It's got to be probably 1%. Think about like most of your teammates probably just moved on, worked their corporate job or whatever they do, and probably maybe do like run club or some pickup games and stuff. That's so far from like what you need to peak yourself. And I think now we're seeing athletes okay, men's peak is later through their late 20s, early 30s, and you're seeing high performance at a later age. So I think that coincides. But that'd be my opinion.
That exact discussion with John Evans, we were like, why do they claim that 100-meter sprinters, peak at 21, 22? It's like, well, they're out of the NCAA system. If you run 10.3, maybe you have the capacity to run 10 flat or even sub 10, but you're not going to get a contract in America. If you're an American running 10.3, there's 120 other Americans running 10.3, if not more. So then they come back, maybe they train on their own, and they run 10.5, and then they retire at 10.5, and they think their peak is 10.5 at 23 years old because they didn't have that support system. But like when you brought up, it's just the physical strength and age, I instantly thought of bobsled and how many people come in and they're like pushing their best at 32. So I think that's an interesting correlation. I don't want to carry on the conversation too much, but yeah, that's super interesting that you see that kind of pop up even in swimming.
Carsten, thanks for coming on, especially in the Good Performance podcast's infancy, where we have quite a few things to work on. We appreciate your words. For younger athletes and coaches listening, hopefully we're going to keep drilling the message into everybody, but train hard, be honest with yourself, get stronger. It's very hard to be too strong. It only becomes a negative when you just only focus on strength and you don't train the other properties of athletic performance. But it's very hard to be too strong in any sport. That usually improves your performance because everyone's, how do I get more athletic? How do I do this? How do I do this? You probably need to get stronger. It's hard to go wrong. Yeah, set goals, do the right thing. Don't do drugs. Don't make bad life decisions, and keep pushing.
If you're listening to this, give us a review. You can rate it. I think we have 3 right now. Brandon, are you able to see who they are from? I'm not sure if you're able to or not. But
no,
if you're
I'm
listening,
not, but
give us a
rating too.
Give us a rating on that.
Thank you.
Carsten, where can people follow along on your journey? I know you occasionally post training clips. What's your Instagram? Let people follow you. I enjoy following Brandon, you and Carsten when you guys are training. I enjoy it. So where can people find you?
Yeah, my Instagram is Carsten Vissering, and I also have a YouTube channel also named Carsten Vissering where I upload other clips there too. So I think if you just want to see some of my PRs and lifts, that's on my YouTube channel, but probably the most up-to-date way to follow my progress, my training, and my status would be my Instagram. And yes, sometimes me and Brandon do collaborate for training days. That's some of my favorite days to get out there, and hopefully more of those will come in the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Brandon, you can stop the recording now. And Good Performance Podcast.